What's up, guys? Jason here, or Man Who Parks in Gym, and today we're taking a look at these. The chrome powerlifting style plates from XMaster. Full disclosure, XMaster sent these to me for a review, and I've only had these plates for a few days. So this may not be the most thorough or long-term review that you'll find on these plates, but I've managed to get a closer look at some of the features that I was most excited about and have been curious about since seeing them at Home Gym Con. And of course, I spent countless hours oogling over these with the XMaster Chrome grip plates and also the XMaster urethane plates over the website. I mean, I've done a whole segment called Just the Tip where I kind of walk through the process of narrowing down the options and ultimately land on the XMaster on my podcast, Rep Rant Repeat, which you should check out on Garage Gym Radio if you're into the home gym scene at all. So, okay, enough self promo. Well, wait, hold on. MW Pig 5 saves 5% at XMaster Fitness. Okay, now enough of the self promo. XMaster claims their plates offer a premium chrome finish with competition style thinness, excellent accuracy, and a price that undercuts Rogue and Rep, plus free shipping. So let's take a closer look and we'll see if these are legit. All right, I'm going to start with the unboxing because that seems to be the logical place in these types of review. I will say the packaging was almost sufficient. I received a pair of each 45, 25, 10, 5, 2.5 ones, and yeah, some half-pound ones also. And out of the 5 boxes, there was one that took a little bit of damage from FedEx. Now, one of the 45s that was in that package happened to get a kind of a scratch on it, which is kind of a bummer. And if I had paid money for these things, I probably would have reached out to XMaster to see about a replacement or something like that. Anyway, once I got past that, the very first thing I notice is the chrome. It's bright, it's reflective, and it definitely has that kind of like high gloss or premium look that they advertise. I especially like the way that it looks under the hex lights in my garage gym. It's kind of like a kaleidoscope or something. I mean, hex lights and chrome plates tend to come in like the standard home gym influencer starter kit, and this is exactly why. Now, aside from the scuffs that FedEx put into them, there were no signs to suggest that any of the plates went into the box with imperfections. I mean, just a few fingerprints, which is normal for chrome. And I have the black Rogue deep dish, and I will say that visually, these do make your gym look more high end if that's the vibe you're going for. And like I said earlier, XMaster claims that these have 4 layers of electroplating for extra rust and corrosion resistance. I don't really know how to test that. I do know that not all chrome plating is equal, and cheap chrome definitely will peel and flake, and it even looks worse than if it was just raw steel. And no matter what you do, you'll never get it back. So if XMaster is using a 4-layer electroplating process like they say, then these should look great for a very long time. Now, on mine, the finish does look very even. The edges are well coated, and I don't see any bare patches or thin spots or anything like that. I guess time will tell how well it holds up, especially at the hole where you load them on the bar. And I've never been too worried about my gym equipment showing signs of normal use or anything like that, so I'm not overly concerned about the finish on these. But I did get a picture of it's a non-XMaster product that I have with some cheap chrome to show some bare spots that I'm going to drop in B-roll right about here. So, of course, chrome will always show fingerprints and micro scratches. I mean, that's just part of owning chrome. Think of it as a flex to own chrome plates that also show obvious signs of use, right? No one can call you a DYEL or whatever. But in all seriousness, out of the box, these do look and feel durable. They stood up to the rigors of FedEx pretty well, all things considered, with minimal damage. So let's talk about accuracy. Now, I've never weighed my weights. I've actually been kind of against it because I don't want that in my head whenever I'm lifting, if one of them is slightly heavier than another or something like that, right? I know, it's crazy. But I know some of you guys are really into that, so I did buy a scale just for the purpose of this video. And XMaster advertises a 1% tolerance and says that most plates come in even tighter than that. So it's important to note that this isn't competition grade where you're within a few grams. But for chrome powerlifting plates or thin weight plates like this, at this price point, 1% is pretty solid. So if you have a scale and you end up with some of these plates, definitely check yours. But And as you can see, all of mine are within their stated tolerance, and they're all very, very close to, from one pair to the next or whatever, to one another. So even the one with the delivery day scars comes in at the same weight as the other one. Now, one of the biggest selling points of these plates is the ultra thin profile, and these are thin. I mean, like noticeably thinner than standard cast iron plates, and even slimmer than a lot of calibrated options. And I may be wrong, but I think Weighted Out may be the only one making thinner plates than XMaster. Theirs are also not calibrated, but they're well within their specs. But anyway, so why would anyone care about thin plates? Well, there are a few reasons, even outside of being a powerlifter. But if you're like a big deadlifter, for example, which I am not, and also if you're in a tight space, you can store more thin plates without the need for nearly as much storage space or weight horns or whatever. And if you're in a small space like a home gym, for example, you can use a shorter sleeve barbell like the Rogue Stump Bar. And it's not going to feel like you're limited by the number of plates you can fit on the sleeve. Also, some weight machines are known to be plate eaters, right? So, with the rise of machines comes maybe some additional plates. So, thin plates are really useful on those scenarios as well. Now, the hub fit feels really good on the American Barbell Chewy Bar. I don't have 13 bars to try them all out on, but I can't imagine why they would feel any different on any of the others. But they're not too tight, they're not too loose, and the plates fit nicely against one another without like a bunch of slop or anything like that between them. Now, if you've never handled thin plates, it's not like it's impossible. I mean, you just hold them like this. Yeah, fingerprints, right? But handling thin plates is always a challenge. Well, for me anyway, comparatively anyway. But that's just my nice way of saying it kind of sucks. And if you agree, I think you should look more closely at the grip plates that XMaster sells. These handle like thin plates, right? The chrome finish has a little bit of texture to it, which maybe kind of helps hide the fingerprints, and it gives you a little bit to hold on to. And the lip itself, it isn't really enough to grab, but it does. I mean, you can feel it. You just need to make sure that you're holding it, just don't be an idiot. But that's pretty typical of most powerlifting style plates where having thinness, like a very thin profile, is top priority in the manufacturing process. So, I mean, personally, I really wouldn't want to handle any thin plates with super sweaty hands. And I don't know how you big, sweaty powerlifters do it, to be honest with you. But, oh, and picking them up off the floor is impossible. Like almost comical how defeated I was when I laid one of these 45s down just to see if the blue edge band would give me an advantage. It doesn't. Not at all. I mean, I would do it again just to get some B-roll, but I had to offer my soul and repent for my sins to get Jesus to help me get the first one off the floor. I'm afraid I don't have much else to offer, and I would have one stuck there forever if I did it again. So I just can't get myself in that situation again. So just take my word for it. You want the grip plates if you're going to set them on the floor. Okay, the edges of these are smooth and there are no sharp spots or anything like that. And loading and unloading them feels uneventful. I mean, that's what you want, right? And in terms of feel, I don't know. I mean, they feel like weights, right? They have that kind of high-pitched clank that you get from steel, and they feel solid and balanced. Maybe one set of weights feels different from one another when you start lifting crazy heavy, but I'll never know. And with only having one pair of each increment, I don't really know how I'd cross that threshold if that was a thing anyway. All right. And you can't argue aesthetically, these things look awesome. Okay. So if you're someone who records content or you film in your gym or care as much or more about the aesthetic of your gym as you're willing to aspire to put into yourself, or just like shiny things in general, XMaster Chrome is definitely something to consider. They reflect light in a cool way, they stand out on camera, and they give your setup a more polished or premium look. Now, yes, like I said and showed you earlier, they do show fingerprints. I don't really see myself wiping fingerprints off of my plates. It's just not my style. But if that bothers you, then you will be wiping yours occasionally. But visually, I think they're a win. Now, price is where XMaster tells me that they really separate themselves, right? And the price of them, which includes free shipping, not to mention promotional sales, or the fact that, like I said, MW Pig 5 saves 5% on top of whatever the lowest advertised price is, I think that's pretty cool. But how does it actually compare? Well, XMaster specifically mentioned Rep and Rogue when we talked about their pricing and value. Now, the only thin plates Rep offers at the moment are their nickel-plated calibrated steel plates, and It's important to note that the XMaster is not technically calibrated. They're machined, okay? Which is still nice, but to calibrate weights, they have to go back in after the fact and add or subtract until they get within a very tight tolerance of usually a few grams, okay? Calibrated plates are expensive, and it's not fair to compare price or value of a calibrated plate against a machine plate simply because they're thin. However, the Rogue USA thin plates are relatively close in specs, although XMaster tolerance is a little bit better at 1% versus Rogue at 2%. And we can debate over things like the differences between steel versus iron, E-coat versus chrome, and of course, made in USA versus imported. But regardless, XMaster comes in noticeably cheaper, and the fact that it's the shipping that's included is the reason, right? So for me, when I put a pair of 45s, 25s, and 10s in the cart from each company, I get a price difference of about $200. And it's pretty much all in Rogue shipping. So if you're local to Rogue, the savings may be more negligible. And of course, if you're concerned about resale, you can't deny the value of name brand recognition that Rogue has on the used market. Either way, for the specs you're getting, the chrome, the thin profile, the accuracy, these land in kind of a sweet spot where you can have plenty of reason to overthink the purchase and suck all the fun out of it before you ultimately decide. Okay, so let's just do a quick rundown of the pros and cons that we've discussed so far. Pros: premium looking chrome finish. Probably, I mean, I don't have any reason to doubt the 4-layer electroplating for durability. Accuracy on these is within 1% tolerance. There's an ultra thin profile for max loadability, regardless of the sleeve length, and requiring minimal storage space, competitive pricing, or free or baked in shipping. Okay, some of the cons. If you're concerned about preserving the finish, chrome requires upkeep and can scratch, right? They're non-IPF certified. Accuracy. Thin plates without a grip or at least a heavier lip are harder to handle. Long-term durability of the finish will take months or maybe even years to truly judge. Let's take a stab at who these might be for. I think if you want great-looking plates that will make your neighbors jealous and collect all the likes on your Instagram reels at a reasonable price, if you have limited space to store your weights, or if you need thin plates for maximizing loadability, even on shorter sleeves, these make a ton of sense, especially if you grab like 2,000 pounds of them. Okay, that was dumb. I probably wouldn't recommend these as a long-term investment for like a power lifter if you're ever planning to compete at a serious degree. Now, I mean, you could, right? Like there are some really, really strong people who have gotten that way training on some absolute shit weights. And of course, the XMaster would still feel closer to calibrated plates than standard or deep dish, and they'd make a great sit to train on while you work to upgrade if you did get more serious about competitive powerlifting. I just have the mindset that you should train on what you compete on in that space, and I could be wrong. I don't know. All right, so let's see if we can wrap this up. XMaster chrome plates are really nice. I don't think anybody disagrees with that. The chrome looks great, the thin profile is legit, and the free shipping does make them a great option for thin plates with a high tolerance. Even though I personally believe that the grip plates, whether chrome, rubber, or urethane, make the absolute most sense for ease of use and maneuverability around the gym. If you aren't into grip plates but want premium aesthetics and solid accuracy without spending a crazy amount of money, these are absolutely worth a look. All right, thanks for watching. Let me know if I should review something else. If you're new here, subscribe. Also, check out the podcast, Rep, Rant, Repeat. It's on Garage Gym Radio. You can watch it on YouTube. It's also on Apple and Spotify. I'll see you in the next one.